On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
Entrepreneurship to me is about freedom. And
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
it's not just the freedom to make a buck, it's the freedom to maybe take your kids to school, right? And time is really, at the end of the day, all we have. We can create comfort from the money, and the money is a byproduct, and a great byproduct at that.
Yeah.
But I think valuing the time, and then just understanding and really having an appreciation, an attitude of gratitude, right? You're just always really thankful, staying humble, staying thankful for what you got, and understanding the time, and those hangs together. That's a real crystallized moment in time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're always really thankful around the Barkman household just for the time that we get together. So
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz, Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast. Today, I've got Keith Barkman on the King stage. My brother, my bearded brother from another mother. How are you?
chilling. How you doing, Chaz? Great to be on today.
Yeah, dude. I appreciate you being here, and just the ability to be able to be in like-mindedness. I know you said you listened to a couple of the shows. You've already gotten quite a bit of benefit from other guests, that we've had on the show, and now you get to give back yourself, man. I just love the circle, man. Just keeps giving, right?
Absolutely. It's an honor and a privilege, man. Thanks for having me on.
100%. Well, tell us what kind of business that you have. We'll get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So my company's Sound Management Group, and we provide turnkey solutions to noise control in buildings. So what we do is we assess client space or project development. We design a solution with product service in mind. We manufacture a host of products, including acoustical treatments, soundproofing materials, and we have a really amazing sound masking system that we develop. Everything's built here in the USA. For
Nice.
speech privacy, workspace optimization. And to bring it all home, we oversee the installation, the delivery, and the implementation of these, and then we measure the results. So we have a few offices nationwide. We've been working internationally on a few projects, and we're the noise
You're
boys. We're here to
killing
solve-
it sounds like.
Yeah, it's great. We're really blessed. So
Well, I can think of two people that need you. Immediately myself, I'm in my studio, as you can see, but my studio is in my house, which I love. I love that I can pop outside and see the kiddos,
no doubt.
but I can still hear them little guys. That's why I got the big expensive mic, so that even if I can hear them, you can't. But we might need your soundproofing. But more than that, I had some space a couple years ago in like a co-working WeWork
Sure.
space,
Yeah.
and those places suck for sound.
Yeah.
Glass
they-
everywhere. It looks cool, but sounds terrible, man.
Yeah, you know what? Typically, what architecturally looks great doesn't do too much for us sound wise, or it does a little too much, right? You know, sometimes you
Right.
get into some of those rooms, they look awesome, but they sound like an echo chamber. And
That's right.
you know, if it sometimes it's a little too much to be in a meeting for 3 hours in one of those rooms. That sounds kind of like a fishbowl. So hopefully, if we're doing our job the right way, we can kind of come in and come up with a solution, something that looks great, sounds great, and delivers just a much more comfortable working and living environment. So,
Yeah.
and we do split, a lot of the work between residential, commercial, government work. So yeah, it's been really a great journey. So
That's cool. Have you
excited to
seen
talk about it.
through COVID and just the transition of more of the co-working space and or even people working from home, have you seen like a spike in those areas?
Yeah, well, so it's interesting you asked that. So there's a couple things, right? You have the working from home environment where everyone's office kind of, maybe was the kitchen table, right? And you had folks who normally weren't working from home. They were kind of trying to manage Zooms while they were also teaching their kids, and that posed its own challenges. And then you have the return to office, right? So you now have folks who are used to maybe a serene or a little less chaotic environment. As they're coming back into the office, they're realizing, Janet and HR can hear all of my conversations, or maybe even worse, I can hear all of Janet's conversations in HR, or the C-suite can kind of overhear, right? And so some of these issues that maybe were ignored before or kind of put on the back burner. Now they're kind of
Yeah.
coming to light because there's a little bit of a difference in environments. So
Yeah.
we like to kind of each project, provides its own, kind of home for different solutions. So we like to kind of come in with open eyes on each project and hopefully come up with something that is usable, looks good, and sounds good for the end user.
That's awesome. All I could think about was, years ago when I was in sales and in phone sales, and and then eventually a sales manager in that environment. And I had 10 15 super loud salespeople. We were in cubicles, we had music playing, people cheering, meetings going on. It was totally the Wolf of Wall Street environment. Just crazy. And I'd have the new guy inevitably come out, who probably is similar to a guy right now returning to an office after being home by himself, going, "Hey, can you turn it down?" I'm like, "What? Nah, I ain't turning it down, man. Just sit down and close the deal."
That's so funny, man. Yeah, we actually just did a law office. My office is in Southern California. We just did a law office, and they're going over case files, and it's very quiet and it's very diligent, kind of task related focus work, right? And on the other side, the shared wall, this used to be two suites that were in the same office, right?
Okay.
And they built this kind of like really kind of questionable pony wall in between, and the other side was this Wolf of Wall Street. It's this corporate recruiter, and every morning they're like, "What's up?" Like they're playing music.
That's right.
Yeah, and we're getting hyped, and so trying to have both of these environments work at the same time and kind of create a little symbiosis, and not have to say, "Well, you guys can't have your meeting anymore," or "You just can't do focus work." We ended up coming up with a solution that was both, sound absorption, soundproofing materials, reinforcing that wall, and then we used sound masking on the law side, just to kind of, just so we weren't fighting against like the library effect in that office. If it was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop, we needed a kind of a hybrid solution. So we were really happy to be able to offer that to the end user. So
that's incredible. Well, I think if anybody across the country has an office with that type of environment or problem, I mean, I can't imagine that there are many guys like you with an expertise like you do. So it's incredible that you offer that. Again, I just go back to those environments, and inevitably the new guy is sitting right next to the speaker and he's freaking out, and you get really good eventually just to realize, look, hey, just tell them it's a birthday party. Like they're like on the other end of the phone, "What is going on over there?" "Oh, it's Susan's birthday. They're over there cheering." And most people on the other end go, "Oh, that's great. Tell Susan happy birthday." And you just keep going with the conversation, right?
Right. It could be it develops this little touch point. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Love it.
100%. Like it's all about like, okay, here's a little vulnerability for the listener. I had a podcast before you, right? You knew that, but not until I text you. I text you on accident thinking I was texting him.
Right.
"Hey, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciated it. Here's some information on the Mastermind group, our family cruise that's coming up. Here you go." And you're like, "Yeah, man, look, I'll be on the show here in a couple minutes." Like, oh crap.
I was like, this guy's on it, man. I'm getting follow-up texts before the call starts.
Before the call, right? But to your point, it created an opportunity where now we have something to laugh about. It's not really that big of a deal.
Of course.
And now we have a story to tell,
Of course, man. Definitely.
All right. So I want to know, this is a new question because I told you I'm going to sprinkle in a couple. I want to know who inspires you.
Oh, man. Oh, this is great. I have so many. This is great. There are so many points of inspiration that I can really draw from. I really would have to say my heroes kind of walk among me. It's my family, my wife, luckily my in-laws. I mean, I am just surrounded by a great family, a great network and support system, and my friends too. I've heard it said before, you show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
That's right.
And I just am really lucky to be surrounded by such a great family, a supportive wife who is awesome in her own right, and just such a great business mind in her own right. And then just, a great friend group and a great network. I think, having the heroes around you is a great thing. It's a great outlook.
Totally. No, and I respect that too. I think that it's difficult as entrepreneurs, right? To be able to, I mean, maybe curate that network sometimes, but man, when it starts with the family, I think that it just is so much more of a solid building ground, really, because if there's not chaos, if there's not discord, if there's not this battle, if you will, in the family, then there it can be easier sometimes to build on relationships beyond that, is my point. And so it sounds like you've been able to do that. So I'm going to dig in more in that here in a little bit, but tell us how you got started in the business. I mean, this is a super unique business. You guys are crushing it. You're international. Give us a little bit of the story, the journey up until now.
Yeah, sure. So, I really do think it started at home. When I was growing up, I grew up in a big family. I'm the fourth of four boys. So, relationships, friendships, my house was a character in and of its own. Right. And there was always people around. It was like always something going on.
Yeah.
I had some cool job or doing something. We had a band room in our basement, actually. And so of my three older brothers, two of them were drummers. My dad was a drummer. My grandfather was like a jazz and big band drummer too.
Nice.
And we had a sound room in the basement, and I would go downstairs. It was soundproof because, and any listener out there who's got a kid who has a drum set, sometimes those panels or something to help kind of quell the chaos is a little great, to have in the space. And I always wondered, like, wow, we always have bands playing in this house.
Yeah.
And, and I kind of had an idea of what my father did. He was an engineer for a company called Owens Corning.
Okay.
And he was in product development, R&D, and then later worked with sales and kind of on the front end as kind of the face of the company. We had these panels up on the wall in the band room. And I was always saying, like, wow, what is all this stuff, and, you flash forward, and I kind of had a better idea of, like, oh, Dad's company makes these things. Right. And I remember getting a Lenny Kravitz CD. I was in 6th grade, and I'm going through the liner notes. I'm flipping through it. It was for Christmas. My cousin gets me this CD. My dad says, let me take a look at that really quick. And I flip through the liner notes, and he goes, you see that studio there? He goes, yeah, we did all the stuff in that studio. That's Sony. And I was like, wow. And so a few years later, I'm at business school. I come home from a summer from college, and we say, hey, we need hands on this one project site. And so I'd never worked on an install. I had worked in kind of food service and,
Sure.
valeting cars and stuff like that, golf courses. And so I'm like the gopher on the job site, the low man, I'm running around getting coffee, getting yelled at. My brothers are up there. They're hanging paddles. My dad's there. And, but it was a veterinary's office. It was these really high vaulted ceilings. And we started bringing these materials in, and immediately, like, the room transformed. I mean, in 2 days, change this room from a complete echo chamber, into like this really what felt like a small, intimate environment. And that's what it was, kind of like this watershed moment where I was like, whoa, this is actually what we do.
Yeah.
And so when I finished business school, my father had kind of consolidated everything that was going on with the previous company that he had before. And I saw it as a great opportunity. I wanted to build sound studios and kind of continue on that journey. And I saw there a lot, there was a lot of parallels into what he had been doing in previous projects and at previous companies. And we decided to start our own thing. And so that, led to us just kind of, we had a really kind of conservative growth model. We didn't want to be what he would characterize as the dog that caught the Cadillac, right?
Yep.
Would it be great to 2x and 3x or 10x in 1 year? It would be, but do you have the systems and the infrastructure in place? Right. And so we created a platform where later my older brothers then came back. They had gone and done their own things. They'd started other companies, been working in sales, and we created a platform for them to come back. And then, the family kind of grew into an extended family where we started adding PMs, opening other offices, and really kind of created what we felt was, a platform to scale it to a larger size operation.
Yeah. Incredible. Like, you had the insight, or maybe even foresight, to be able to see what your dad was doing, but see it bigger. Also too, just real quick, I don't know if I've heard someone else put maybe it in language, but I felt it as soon as you said, like, the sustainable growth model, basically. And I've talked about this on the show as well as with plenty of Mastermind members, but it's like, look, man, 10x, 100x, like, let's do it. Like, growth solves everything, right? Sure. Like, I'm all about it, but I also want to be around in 100 years. Maybe not me personally, but I love the brand, my children, someone else. Like, like, am I just doing this to make money, or is this like a thing? Because if I want it to be a thing that lasts a long time, there's just some like principles that we got to work through. And some of those things can't be rushed. And if they are rushed, it destroys the very thing that you're trying to create. So I just love that perspective. Has that been true all these years of you guys building a business like this?
Yeah, it really has been, because I think that metered growth is something that both, it allows you to, and I love, and I've heard this said on the pod before, the statement, but sometimes we're all kind of building your ship as you're at sea, right?
Yeah.
And these changes as entrepreneurs, they're critical. A larger company, these big battleships that kind of move very slowly, right? They can make $1 million mistakes, right? They can kind of go into like this debt valuation, and it like, we don't really operate. I at least I don't. I can't speak for everyone, but we don't operate by that same set of rules. We have to kind of make critical decisions, and for us, it's been a way where we can implement the processes and not get too big and grow to a point where we're compromising then some of the efficacy, right? The solution and the actual good work that you can do, right?
Sure.
Because if I know so many great carpenters that were really lousy accountants, right? And they tried to do it all. And rather than, and maybe from an ego or maybe just a lack of knowledge standpoint, but you do have to rely on professionals and other folks to kind of bring in their expertise and like kind of let the all-stars shine at their value positions, right? And
that's right.
So that's been something that I think we've kept really close close to us in terms of how we're growing and making sure that we're not losing sight of doing good work just to kind of scale with innumerably, right? And also as another point too, if you set these really high standards of like, okay, this year it's gonna be 3x growth from what's going on last year, right? Well, if you don't hit that number, do you feel like it's kind of the year is somewhat of a failure, or are you setting these expectations? Not to say don't set high expectations, but also keep it real. Like be grounded and understand that positive growth and metered growth is sustainable and is a great thing too.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like the why of like, well, why, right? And I think a lot of times we set what appears to be unrealistic targets based out of either that we just don't know and we're just charging the hill, or out of greed, or out of just sheer ambition with no calculated plan. And there's a level of that. Like you got to have some ambition to be in business to begin with. So like we have this thing inside of us both, as well as the listener, right? But then there's the other side of it where you call it metered growth, or this thing that builds something sustainable. And so I guess my question to end this off before we move on to the next topic is, how do you personally, like, it sounds like you've curbed the monster, the ambitious monster a little bit. You've got him metered, you got him put in check, and we got this systematic growth thing. How do you keep him alive inside the box, if you will? Not to say that you put him in the box per se, but a little bit, like he's in the box, but he's still on fire. How does that dynamic work?
Yeah, that's a great question. The monster's definitely there. So we got to kind of keep him in check certain times. I think what we do is that we have certain, we'll have certain like specs for like the beginning of the year, right? We'll have, our annual like kind of goals. And some of those are add-ons that are going to be fun components, right? They're going to be, they're going to be a prize for a sale, like a sales goal, right? Like it's like prize driven and a positive, environment that, it might be a cost outlay that's going to be happening on the books, but it's something that it's like, it's this wish list item that we've wanted to do for years. Right. And then there's some boring stuff that we kind of keep up. Well, we're going to make sure that the IP portfolio is rounded out here, or now I am excited by IP, but I like, but I'm like in it all the time. Right. So for us, it's like these little wish list items. We try to remain understanding of where it is our money is going, and understand that, you also have to kind of tell the why internally of like, hey, this is why we're we're putting this aside, and this wish list item is going to be, this is the fruit of your efforts, right?
Yeah.
And we also like to take a look at that kind of macro level and step back and say, hey, remember like 5 years ago, all of those wish list items happened, right?
Yeah.
So it's in the day to day, I think it's very easy for us to kind of get caught up and feel like we're kind of in some kind of minutia at times. But really, if you step back and say, man, a year ago we were doing this and this, and this got done, right? So X, Y, and Z got done. And 5 years ago, goodness, like, can you even, could you even have imagined it have been, at this point? And so I think taking pause and then just, feeding the monster a little bit, you know what I mean? You gotta, can't
keep
keep
them alive
always. You gotta still keep rocking and rolling. So
yeah, I think it's a never ending battle for all entrepreneurs, probably more so for the other way. I think probably most listeners don't know how to tame the beast enough or in a way that's productive enough, right? Like where you've got this metered approach, which I think is just poised. It's mature. It's like, hey, look, it's almost like in alignment with delayed gratification. Like all these decisions that I've made as a youngster, but building businesses in my 20s, pouring every last dime back into the businesses, buying real estate, like all of those decisions have led to cool things now in my 30s and even way cooler things in my 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s that I'll be able to do with my kids and grandkids. And so it's the same vein of like, look, let's just do what's right. The stuff will come, like whether it's physical material stuff or whether it's success, fame, whatever. It's just do the right thing, do it for a long enough period of time, and it's inevitable is kind of what I'm picking up. Would you like to add anything?
Absolutely. Motion to the ocean, maybe.
There you go. Okay. I want to know, inside of these years that you've had for success, looking back, is there a personality trait or characteristic trait that you have that's unexpectedly kept you from success?
Yeah. I think analysis paralysis and the want for perfection, right?
Yeah, sure.
I think that a lot of times especially in social media these days, you may stop. Like I remember I hung up playing guitar, right? Because for years. And because, not only was I not Eddie Van Halen, like right out of the gate. Right. And the expectation was like, I was also surrounded by guys when I was playing, in bands and, I was like around these like wonderkin prodigy kids, and everyone's got their own intelligence, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that I wouldn't, can't get there or wouldn't have gotten there. But, I know what definitely won't get me there is hanging it up. Right. But managing the expectations, like, if you want to get into just same for business, but if you wanted to get into health and fitness, don't think you're going to get on the road and start running and you're going to be an ultra marathoner. It just doesn't work that way. And so you have to also, I think that initially when I was younger, instead of that metered growth, I wanted immediate gratification and immediate results and kind of perfection out of the gate. And, I'm okay. I'm okay with being, the white belt, and understanding that to get to be a brown belt or a purple belt or a black belt, it takes time and it's a labor of love. And there's going to be certain things where your intelligences will accelerate that growth and you'll be seeing quicker.
Yeah.
There are other things where you're just going to have to put in the hours, So
well said. Well said. What about a good trait or a personality trait that you feel like has led you to right where you are? Just, man, every successful person should do this or have this.
I think that integrity, if you can get up in the morning, look yourself in the mirror and go to bed at night and look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I did what I did today was good work. And, the byproduct of that will be success, but you have to be true to yourself and true to the work that you're doing. Know that no matter what task it is, you can do it well. It could be, cleaning, it could be cleaning your sink, you know what I mean? But like, don't half step it, because you still got a dirty sink at the end of the 5 minutes that you spent. So, it's your choice how you want to spend that time. For me, what's worked for me is just, doing good work first, and then the success, the money, everything else will be a byproduct of that. So,
yeah, I agree. All right, well, let's parlay these this good and bad difference into our decision making. Big part of the show here. Want to know of a good decision, especially if you can think of one early on where you can think back and just led you to success, or this one decision kind of led to maybe a domino of other decisions that led to success. What is it?
Sure. So I had a client, a residential project years ago. This was around 10 or 11 years ago. And what ended up happening was it was the client wanted a seamless 10-foot by 11-foot panel for a basement, like kind of like a media room, like a viewing room, right? Had to be seamless. Now, think about a 10 by 11-foot piece of artwork, right? We'd have to start knocking down walls, and like, you can't prefabricate that. Right. And at that time, we were doing just a lot of prefabricated material. And, so I did some research, and instead of just saying no out of the gate, I did a little research, and I realized that we would have to learn a new trade and actually bring in a different type of system. So I talked to the architect, I talked to the client, said, look, this is our timeline for being able to, yes, we can do it, but this is the time we're going to need to do it. Right. So I ended up bringing another project manager, carpenter, out with me. And, we found the right products, we found the right fabrics, got all of that approved, did a little bit of acoustical analysis on the space, and then we trained on this new system. And my team, like, we did the installation in our shop before we even went to their site, and just to kind of do like a demo, right? And then, flash forward around 10, 11 years later, that site built system accounts for around 20-25% of what our sales are. Yeah. So, it was instead of kind of looking at it from either an immediate no standpoint or an ego standpoint, like, we just don't do this kind of a thing. I looked at it as like, look, this might open up a few different doors for us and kind of gives us a little more versatility. We like to try to be like this, like Swiss Army knife of like soundproofing and acoustics. And this really rounded us out. So, maybe to other folks out there listening, maybe you can look to another angle, another product, or another service that you can offer that kind of increases, it's not instead of what you're doing, but it's in addition to. And that for us really opened up a lot of doors and led to a lot of downstream success.
Yeah, especially if you have people asking for it. Now, just because a customer asks for it doesn't mean that you should do it. But I love your answer there. It was, hang on, let me look, right? And you did some research, and then you determined that it was a good fit. It wasn't the pressure of this person wants it, or I need this job. There's like this external, like we need to get this money somehow. And so you kind of like, stumble through it. It was like, no, actually, based on the research, I feel like this could really, like you said, round us out. I feel the exact same way, similar, just 30 seconds here, on the family mastermind cruise that we're doing later this year. It'll be our first one. We're going to probably open it up to about 20 families. It's going to be super limited, maybe more next year, but there's this theme that guys talking to guys just like you for, 240, 250 episodes now. And there's this theme of, man, I'm a high driver in my business. I want to be a high driver in my family. And man, I love those little guys and I love my wife, but I just kind of want to, it's hard to bring it all together, And so if I could facilitate something where it literally enables family and marriage and business talk and family vacation all in the same thing, I presented it to my wife, and my wife was like, hallelujah,
Oh yeah.
So it's like, it's not masterminding with business owners, but it is. It's just right over here. And I felt like it rounded out exactly what it is our brand really is about, which is not just business, but the family, the marriage, like who you are as an individual, being elite in all areas. And so I just appreciate that perspective, because I think if you can do that inside your business as a listener listening right now, it doesn't have to be something that you are pressured into, but if it makes sense, if it's an alignment, years down the road, maybe it's 25% of your income.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's go to a bad decision. Something that you did that, it didn't end well at all. And you're vulnerable enough to share it with us.
Yeah. I had to I had to go through there's a laundry list of a few of these. I think the common theme of that jumps out to me when I was when thinking about this. So we like everything is about process and lack of process. Any bad decision we've made, it started with good intentions, and it usually the break point was not having a system in place to kind of adapt. So particularly one that jumped out to me was we had this project database tool we invested in for design build projects. So there's two. There's tenant improvement. There's kind of buildings that exist that have issues where we got to come in. And then there's, buildings that don't exist yet. And so we wanted to get a little more years back. We wanted to get a little more involved in those projects. And we signed up for this really bell and whistle service. And, we got all these seats, and it's this big investment on our end. And, initially it was everybody's job, which means it was nobody's job. Right. And we never built in that, it was like a fancy gym membership, right? We bought it and we paid for the whole year, but we never went. And then we started pointing fingers and saying, well, why do we not see gains, bro? Like, we weren't just using it, and it's just like, you can have the membership, right? But you got to do the work. And, luckily we pivoted pretty quickly, and within, as we evaluated it, the first kind of quarter we were signed up for this year, and we were like, look, we got to make, we got to put some hours in on this thing, everyone. And we have to start as our weekly or bi-monthly kind of meetings. We got to start to follow up and create an accountability stream on okay, whose projects are these, where are we assigning them, and what's the process? And so it ended up being something that we were able to, initially it was a disaster. So, and it was all relating to process, just not having one.
Yeah. We had an in-person mastermind here at my house back in November. And there's a gentleman in our Gathering the Kings group. He's a big GC, probably 400 million or so in revenue. Awesome. And he said this, he said, a process can usually always be traced back to a problem. And you created the process because you had this big old problem. And, but that's okay. Sometimes you can catch them ahead. You can predict, right? Like what the problem's going to be. So you'll create the process, but a lot of times it's based on the problem. And so his point was to go back and review often, because when you can pinpoint those problems, then you can then create the process for the future so it doesn't happen again. Because in essence, you're an idiot if you keep repeating the same problem over and over and over again, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Couldn't have said it
especially
better
in a project-based business like yours.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And that's a great, it creates a great opportunity. Those problems, you can look at them as, and you can be upset about them, but, really looking at it and just trying to kind of create an opportunity, and just looking, sometimes it's not a full sale pivot, 180, right? It's just a tweak or just an improvement that you can make. And, so we looked at it rather than, once we stopped yelling at each other for a little bit, we then, said, okay, let's figure out how do we make this kind of thing, turn green for us, and where, let's talk about where the break point is and what happened. And then, let's go from there. Let's move, make it a positive.
Exactly. All right. I'm going to go to our speed round here. Keith, I want to know a couple of different angled answers coming from, especially your experience here of being analytical, especially. So the first one being KPI driven. What's the most important KPI? Or the way I like to say it is, if you could only pick one, like literally only pick one, what would it be?
Oh, I love this question. This maybe is one of my favorites too. I think for us, it's got to be lead generation and conversion. To us, there certainly is a certain amount of housekeeping, but getting in front of new clients and telling the story, that to us is what's really helped that steady growth.
Yeah, especially in a project-based business, because you're going to get referrals on the back end, but the pipeline is the determination of your business.
100%. 100%.
I think a lot of guys try to live in a place, especially again, go project-based, because I own some project-based businesses. And it's like in that world, it's not that you don't have an amazing experience or that you don't ask for referrals. You do. Just the reality of it is that lifetime, or that the value isn't long. And so what that immediately means as a sales guy is that you got to go back to the filling of the pipeline. And so I feel like that's where a lot of guys get caught in that project-based business, is that they're trying to, like you said, do the best work, give the best experience, which is great. You should do that. But if you forget about the front end, you're quickly going to be left without anybody to do a good job for.
100, man.
All right. What book would you recommend for a business owner trying to grow their business here in 2023?
There's so much gold out there. I got to say, recently, it's been The Obstacle is the Way
Okay.
for me by Ryan Holiday. I think,
What's your takeaway?
yeah, with kind of deploying stoicism as an OS, as Tim Ferriss would say, right?
Yeah.
I can tend to be a higher EQ component individual at times. And I think, just really kind of trying to, some of the stories that, and, like Teddy Roosevelt's story, I mean, just everybody listen to it or read it. And I love to get some feedback from other kings and queens out there. It's just, for me, it's been just such a great centering, focus. It's a part of just meditation, prayer for me. I just really love stoicism, and that doesn't mean complete detachment.
Right.
That just means kind of just, to me, it really means, staying cool under pressure, understanding the wins and the losses, and just, operating with that as your kind of your OS. So.
Yeah, I think you actually described this exact thing pretty well a few minutes ago when you were talking about, feeding the beast, taming the beast, this meteored growth. That whole conversation that we had is exactly this. There's not like this. You don't put him in the closet, right, and close the door and then never let him out. And he's supposed to be on his best behavior and be all buttoned up and lined up all the time. But there's this ability to control circumstance, or at least yourself in the circumstance. Would you agree with that?
100%, and another great, tie-in would be like, you can, I mean, right. Living in Southern California, you can get mad at the traffic. Like you can, you can spend your drive. You can be cursing left and right and screaming and honking, or, you can just understand that there's no real control that you have over that.
That's right.
And so you determine and you have the power on how you handle the externals in your life. And once you realize that, it's a lot easier. It's a much more fun drive for me.
That's right. Exactly. Well, it becomes purposeful now because you already have good expectations, and you know how to not only manage yourself, but now manage the actual time, because you're going to have the hour. You might as well not spend it pissed. You might as well just be productive and listen to Gathering the Kings podcast.
100%.
All right, brother. My next question for you is about your family. I want to know what you've implemented over these years to have this family business, like I'm obsessed about both dynamic.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the balance, having grown up with serial entrepreneurs from my family, that managing that balance, just like you were talking about with, the upcoming cruise, this is about entrepreneurship. To me, is about freedom. And sometimes it's not just the freedom to make a buck, right? It's the freedom to maybe take your kids to school, right? And, or maybe have, that time is really, at the end of the day, all we have. We can create comfort from the money, and the money is a byproduct, and a great byproduct at that. But I think, valuing the time, and then just kind of understanding and really having, an appreciation, an attitude of gratitude, right? You're just kind of always really thankful, staying humble, staying thankful for what you got, and understanding the time, and those hangs together. That's a real crystallized moment in time. You know what I mean? And so we're always really thankful around the Barkman household, just for the time that we get together. So.
Yeah, you're right. Because the time is what makes the difference for the entrepreneur who doesn't make the time or doesn't feel like he has the time. It's because he probably doesn't value the time that much. And that was really what it was for me, I guess, is just that putting it on the calendar, or, making it an obsession equal to my business. It was like, okay, now I actually had to stop saying it was and do the time, So appreciate your perspective on that. I got one last question here for you. Keith, if you could whisper in the younger Keith's ear, what would you say, man?
Doesn't have to be perfect. You're doing all right. And it doesn't have to be perfect, man. Just get out there and do what it is that you want to do. And I think, again, just kind of don't focus on analysis paralysis. Just get out there and do it. Yep. And you're doing all right, kid. Just stay at it.
I love it, man. Such encouraging words to a younger you and me. So many others too, I'm sure, especially for those that are out there that fall into that perfectionism, that high standard. It's not about lowering it. It's about giving yourself freedom just to go for it. Just go for it. Just jump.
Absolutely. Oh, and start running and lifting earlier.
Amen.
You don't have to wait
and invest
until-
in a Microsoft and a Tesla and
I know, I mean, yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Those two. The Back to the Future, the sports book or whatever. No, I just think it's, just not being, don't sweat the small stuff. Right. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get out there and do it.
I love it. Keith, you've been incredible. How can the listener find you? Obviously, you guys do business, commercial, residential across the country and even internationally now. So if they need your services, how can they find you? Or if they're just an entrepreneur, they want to reach out, pick your brain, where can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find, my company, Sound Management Group. You can find it at soundmanagementgroup.com. Our Insta is Sound Management Group LLC. You can find me on LinkedIn, Keith Barkman, Barkman. I'm on a bunch of the other socials too, but
Perfect.
give me a shout if you have any questions. I'd love to connect. And thank you so much for this opportunity, Chaz. I really do appreciate it. And it's an honor and a privilege, man.
Well, you're welcome. I'm the one that needs to thank you for dropping nuggets on us and the encouragement, as well as just being real, man. I appreciate just a good story, but your story is one of, I think that metered growth that you talked about is just such a beautiful way to say it. And I just really respect it, honestly, because your company is going to be around and around and around and around because of the decisions that you've made and are continuing to make. And so it's going to be fun to run with you, brother. So I appreciate you being here. Thank you for pouring into the audience. We bless you and your family, and good luck in 2023.
You too,
Thanks
brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing literally over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings literally exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.